calling out cat people. This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Wedge Lab podcast. It's a special episode. Today I'm joined by Conrad Zbikowski. Am I saying that right? There's a lot of consonants in there.
You know, I had a Polish friend, somebody who immigrated from Poland in high school, and he pronounced it Zbikowski or something like that. But my German grandmother pronounces it Zbikowski. So,
okay,
you know,
that feels more natural. And tell us what you do with the Minneapolis DFL.
So we are an all-volunteer organization from our chair on down. And so I am a volunteer that works with Ward 3 of Minneapolis, with downtown and the other side of the river too. And then I also work on the data and caucus technical work. So when you went to caucus.dfl.org, you clicked on that link, and from there on, it was stuff that I worked on.
Yeah, you're underselling it, Conrad, because I just had a conversation with an anonymous campaign manager. It was like, oh, you're talking to Conrad? That guy's an effing all-star. So what are you doing? What are you doing that makes these campaigns appreciate you so much?
Well, we give them data on a daily basis, and they're extremely hungry for it. So when we can satiate their desire for data, then they're very happy.
Well, good work, Conrad. Glad to have you here. Thank you for coming on to tell us about the data. I'm a little skeptical that a podcast that's just going to be you spouting off numbers is going to be that compelling, but we're going to give it a shot. Like, what have we learned? Can you tell us who won? I really want to know who won, Conrad. Tell me who won. Because the caucus registration closed yesterday. That means today we should know who won, right?
Well, as of this recording, it sounds like we're going to hold off on that. And the reason is because we want to make sure to do the credentials process without knowing who supported who. So, for example, if you had a provisional ballot in Georgia and you had a bunch of Republican lawyers who were debating whether to throw it out or not, you wouldn't want them to know that you voted for Joe Biden or something. So in that same kind of context for this, when we are deciding who is eligible to be a caucus attendee, that is, who is above the age of 16 to participate and above the age of 18 to be a delegate, things like that, we want to make sure that when that decision is made, it isn't with the knowledge of who you supported, because that kind of gives some bad incentives there.
Okay. So tell me how many people registered and how that compares to prior.
So we have a preliminary total right now as of May 1st that 10,790 people registered for the caucus. And I say preliminary because if somebody registered with variations of their name, computers are not necessarily 100% confident to, merge those two things together. So if you put Bernie and Bernard, then those will show up as two people. But that's why we have a human-led credentials process to merge all that stuff and make sure that people who are confirmed with one variation of their name then are good to go with the other variations of their name. So about 10,000 people roughly.
Okay, I see 10,790, and what is it, like half of that are unconfirmed at this point? They haven't yet typed the number in from the postcard they received into the website?
Yeah, so because we aren't meeting up in person, we want to make sure that people, one, live where they say they live, and two, that somebody actually wanted to caucus And it isn't that's a bad actor stole your voter registration and then created a Yahoo email address and caucused for you. So I do appreciate that is kind of a hurdle, to have this confirmation by postcard and to put the number into a web form or text it in or something. But because of the great risk of making it into a clicker poll, essentially, by having it be virtual, the postcard confirmation process is our best tool to make sure that kind of bad acting doesn't happen. And we saw very little of the kind of activity that would lend us to believe that people were filling out the form in a malevolent way.
So it looks like you had a surge of registrations the final 2 days.
Yeah, so our top 3 days of the entire 30 days of April, our top 3 days were the last day, April 30th, the second to last day, April 29th, and then the first day, April 1st. So it's kind of like early voting and the general election where, you'll have a lot of people show up on the first day of early voting because they're so excited to vote. And then you'll have a lot more people show up on election day or the day before election day for early voting. And that's kind of the trend that we saw with the caucus registrations online in a virtual environment.
I'm going to say I'm very disappointed in the over 3,000 people who waited till the final 2 days to register to caucus. That's very disappointing. They should not have waited that long.
Well, we're happy that the opportunity was available to them, and it wasn't like Caucus Night 2017, where it's on a Tuesday night, it's cold, you don't want to miss dinner or something, and this process was available 24/7, so you could, people registered at 2 a.m. I don't know why.
Are you going to tell us which caucus goers registered at 2 a.m.? That's the kind of data I'd like to see. Who's staying up all night to register to caucus, Conrad?
The campaigns know that data because we do provide the timestamp of when somebody registered. And the timestamp is accurate down to about 10 microseconds. So it's very precise. And so that's one way that we kind of can track things to cross-reference things.
Because if I'm Tony Webster, that's the kind of data I'd like to get my hands on.
It won't be public. It's only shared with the campaigns who are, with agreement with the DFL.
You could destroy someone's future political career.
If it is interesting to people of what times of the day that people registered, I could definitely, create a pivot table for you and show what hours of the day of the 24-hour clock people registered, so then when to schedule your emails, as it were.
What other data are you collecting, Conrad? Are you tracking people's movements as they're registering?
No, we don't ask for any location data. And actually, our Minneapolis DFL.org website is very light on doing any kind of, information tracking. I hope that Tony Webster and company are happy with the way that we've done things. We do ask for things with our form, but in terms of the kind of third-party tracking on our website, the only tracker that I'm aware of is our Google Analytics. But other than that, we don't, because obviously we're not serving any ads, so it's not as invasive as many things are.
What stood out to you as interesting through this experience? What data is coming in that made Conrad go, well, that's interesting?
Well, I think one thing that was interesting to me is that we started the process with one thing that we had really geared up for and we had done volunteer trainings for was the idea of doing caucusing by text. So the idea of somebody who has a flip phone or a more basic phone that doesn't have a good web browser and maybe doesn't have internet at home, that they would like to caucus by sending in a series of text messages or having a conversation by text, and us on our end filling out the form for them. We have a citywide form that is used for people who call in or text in. And after 30 days, only one person completed a registration by text. There was a lot of people who texted us, but mostly it was about one, confirming their address, so the confirmation postcard, two, just general technical support and questions about caucusing. And then there was people who said that they want to caucus, and then I shared that they could do it on caucus.dfl.org, and then they did that because that was more convenient for them. But there was one person who had a basic phone, not a smartphone, and so we did it over text, and I completed the registration, and their information is with the campaigns. And so it was kind of rewarding that, yes, it wasn't as many people as I had imagined, but at least we were ready for it, and we were able to support that caucus attendee in a manner that was good for them.
Yeah. So it basically turned into a customer service line.
Yeah. And so looking back, if I had known it was a customer service line, I would have liked to invest in something like Twilio or other services like that.
What is Twilio, Conrad? Our listeners don't know what Twilio is.
Oh, Twilio is imagine all of your social media and calling and texting all merged together into one customer service. It's kind of like a master inbox in a sense,
Okay.
that all these different services are coming into one inbox, and you can support people with a web browser, and you don't have to be logged in separately to different places,
So roughly how many customer service type text message came in?
We had about 300 or more people who texted in.
And I think maybe we missed this in the introduction. You actually are the digital mastermind behind the live streamed cat tour last year. During the pandemic, we weren't doing the in-person cat tour. We weren't going to have 300 people show up and get the police called on them for crowding down Colfax Avenue. So we had to do a live stream cat tour, and you made that happen.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we should take a step back and say how I kind of first got involved with Wedge Live. It was thinking that you're literally an official neighborhood organization, and because you said in 2017 I was on a political campaign, and you started saying stuff that sounded endorsement like. And I was concerned that you were actually part of the government and telling people that they should vote for somebody.
Oh, well, thanks for looking out. Yeah, I'm not an official neighborhood organization. I'm just me. I'm Wedge Live.
Yeah, you're Wedge Live, but on your Twitter bio at the time, it said that you were the official Twitter handle of the neighborhood.
Who is to say that I'm not the official Twitter account of Lowry Hill East? You can't say that I'm not. I can definitely say that I am. Yeah, the reason
it's a free country.
The reason I put that in there was to irritate people on the neighborhood org at the time.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell me I'm not the official Twitter account. Like that's not even a real thing.
Yeah, are they going to sue you? Are they going to ask for trademark infringement for using the Wedge name?
They got irritated. Like they got a city department involved. And like somebody from the neighborhood and community relations department who I don't think liked me very much.
Well, I'm sorry if my Twitter DM caused that in some way.
No, it didn't. I actually did not understand what you were saying at the time. You were implying something wrong was happening. I didn't understand it. I think I just ignored it.
Well, I wasn't in a healthy place then, so hopefully I didn't offend you too much.
No. Not offended at all. And you went on to big things as the cat tour live streaming guru, the cinematographer of the 2020 Wedge Live cat tour.
Yes, I have my 20,000 milliamp battery that I used to power myself during in-person political events when we had those, and then also the cat tour, because as you know, live streaming on a phone requires a lot of wattage, and so it's good to have your battery. But then the problem was that it started to rain, and the connection on my phone, the little port that I was charging with, it said moisture. It's like, oh shoot.
You know what an interesting podcast topic would be is how we live streamed the 2020 cat tour. Nobody cares about these DFL numbers. Nobody cares that 10,000 people registered to caucus. They care, how did we live stream the CAT tour in 2020? What went into that?
Well, you just gave me you just logged in on Twitter or on Periscope on your phone, on my phone, and I just started the live stream, and it worked pretty well.
You know, I never went back to watch it. Did you ever watch it?
No, hell no.
Yeah. I'm a little self-conscious about that. I didn't know how it went.
I do vividly remember, though, the cat head that just pulls up because people are watching and they know where we are in the neighborhood. So they drive in their car and pull up and pull out a cat head. And I don't know if you still have that cat head, but
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
It's in my basement storage area.
Okay. So then we'll see that at, the next Wedge in-person event this summer, maybe.
Yeah, I think we're going to do in person. I don't know if Governor Walz is going to authorize in-person cat tours, but we're hoping.
Well, I know that you said that you want that to be your last cat tour, but maybe the lack of a cat tour in 2020 has, how do you say, not satiated, the opposite of satiated, but
rekindled the desire.
Rekindled your desire for a cat tour.
Maybe. Every year it's kind of a pain in the ass, and I don't like people. And so when a lot of people show up to a cat tour, it stresses me out.
Anyway, I had a animal head that I wore on my birthday back when we went to when you could do stuff like that, on 4th of July or whatever. I don't know. You can cut that. I don't know what I was going with that.
Okay, I'll probably leave it in. Did you reveal any private information there? Because I'm going to try to put this out tomorrow, and there's not going to be a lot of editing.
Oh, no. I was trying to make a joke about animal heads that you get at the, department store or, general retailer. Mm-hmm. But I don't know where I was going with that because...
okay. Well, failed jokes remain in the show, Conrad. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's on me.
So do we have anything else about the DFL registration process? I wanted to know who won, and you can't tell me that. So this whole show might be a bust.
So some things that I can say that are just talking about the caucus overall is that, so I talked to the Minnesota DFL and got some data on the 2017 caucuses. And the median age of a caucus attendee in 2017 was 47 years old. And in 2021, I still haven't crunched it for the entire thing yet, but when I did it before, the median age was 45. And it's interesting because for the National Democratic Party, people that voted for Joe Biden in 2020, that median age was 45. So I think it is true that this process was not, in some ways, it was harder for people with lesser technology means, but it was also much more accessible for people with mobility concerns, where the oldest person that I talked to was 96. So somebody who's 96, who's never going to go to an in-person caucus again, but they are able to, talk on the phone. It's as easy as talking on the landline phone. So that was incredibly rewarding for me. And the median age of the people who called in and registered by call-in was in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So that was a great way for them to participate, because there are many people out there that don't have a computer, or if they do have a computer, it isn't easy for them to use, that they might do something like email and some web browsing, but things like this is more difficult.
You know what this sounds like to me, Conrad, is that if you ever decide to run for office in the future, this is something you brag about in your endorsement screening with the DFL Senior Caucus.
Yeah, that I spent, like 12 hours of my life talking to people on the phone.
You understand the concerns of senior citizens.
I do. And you can throw up the picture of my grandmother that I posted. But She's 94, and I do a lot to make sure that she has, equal access to the things that she wants to do. And even if it's something as simple as like calculating her taxes,
Mhm.
like before she was using an adding machine, and then I got her an iPhone. And one of the things there's two things she loves about her iPhone. One, that she can check the weather wherever she is. And two, that she has this calculator that is much easier to use and is nice and big buttons and things like that versus her adding machine. So it's
But
just
it
kind of like,
doesn't produce a paper trail, Conrad. The adding machine actually has paper coming out the end of it with numbers on it. With the iPhone calculator, there's no paper trail.
oh, she writes it down. She writes it down as she goes along.
Okay.
So.
You know what I'm curious about is geographic quirks.
Oh yeah, I think one thing that I've shared with the campaigns already, so it's not necessarily something that they don't already know. As so, one aspect of having delegates versus having something like a primary is that with delegates, some precincts will have more people who want to be a delegate than there are delegate slots. And so the ward where that happens the most this year, at least so far, with confirmations that are coming in, and we can talk about confirmations too. But the ward where that happens the most is Ward 7. There are several precincts in Ward 7 where there's more people who have both registered and confirmed their address and want to be a delegate than there are delegate slots. So that when we have delegate elections in May 12th, then that will happen a lot in Ward 7. And that's been shared with the campaign. So that's nothing that is, sharing only with you. But, whatever your political opinions are, I think it's important to recognize that having proportional representation through the delegate process, whether you agree with everything about it or not, one thing that is true is that were it a primary, then places like Ward 7 or Ward 13 would have more representation versus how many people live there than with the delegate process where they're kind of capped out in that sense.
Yeah, I think my precinct 10-1 has, at least for the ward, yeah, more people want to be delegates than can be delegates, which is irritating to me. And I think that's because two of the candidates, Katie Jones and another candidate, Alicia Gibson. Don't vote for Alicia Gibson, by the way. I know Conrad can't endorse that. He's with the DFL, but
yeah, I can't
it's
say
it's the base. It's 10-1 is the base of support for two candidates, and so there's a lot of people want to be delegates there. But I hadn't thought of the geographical, like, I think about these things a lot with voter turnout and who's electing the mayor, for example. But I hadn't thought of the advantages of the caucusing convention, DFL endorsing system to kind of even that out so that the super high turnout in Southwest doesn't kind of overwhelm lower turnout parts of the city like North Minneapolis.
Yeah, and so
but aren't delegates also allocated based on turnout in previous elections?
Yeah, so that's kind of the duality of it. So statewide, delegates are apportioned by what's called candidate average vote, which is essentially how many Democratic voters there are in a given precinct. So if you're like in, Candy, Ojai County, and there's like one Democratic precinct, and then, the rest of the whole county is red or something, then it makes sure that the precinct that is Democratic, that those people are the ones choosing the Democratic nominee or endorsed person for that jurisdiction. So now in Minneapolis, we're 80-90% Democratic or something like that in terms of who votes for Joe Biden in 2020. And so that's less of a concern. But that is the state rules. So that's where that comes from and kind of the logic behind it. So it is true that if you have a precinct or an entire ward that votes less in terms of the voter turnout versus resident population, that precinct will have less voice in the process. And so we did try to, back in the fall of 2020, when we were starting to write the rules for this, we had looked at doing it by residential population with the census, but that was against the DFL Constitution with candidate average vote.
There's a lot of good things that are against the DFL Constitution.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I am free to say that I agree with that. And we tried to, and this is a good segue to the one-step process that we had come up with. Back in December of 2020, the Minneapolis DFL had endorsed and passed, approved a plan that would be one step. That is, there isn't electing of delegates, there aren't conventions, there is simply an endorsement vote. And everybody can vote on endorsement. Everybody is a delegate in a proportional way. So if you have a precinct that has 10 people, then they have a certain voting power. And then if you have a separate precinct with 5 people with the same number of Democratic voters, then they have, each person counts twice in a sense. That we're keeping it proportional to candidate average vote to follow the DFL rules, but we're making sure that, as long as there's people voting in each precinct, which now that we've had 10,000 caucus attendees, that definitely happened. But it would have meant that once you had filled out your online form, and then once you confirmed your address, there still would have to be the confirming of the address. But once that was done, then we'd have endorsements. But since that wasn't a caucus, since that didn't have the middle step of electing delegates, it was shot down by the Constitution, Rules, and Bylaws Committee of the state DFL.
So let's talk about, because one thing I noticed talking to people about this and urging them to become delegates is a lot of people were intimidated just by the word delegate, as if it implied there was some great responsibility or obligation they were taking on beyond just filling out another Google form. So if I'm a delegate, what am I looking, what is the next step for me in this process? I somehow successfully became a delegate. What do I need to do next? What's happening?
Yeah, so there's 136 precincts in the city of Minneapolis. And in the vast majority of those precincts, everybody who wants to be a delegate will become a delegate, at least of the recording of this episode. So then, let's say you become a delegate. If you registered online, you provided an email address. And then, so on May 12th, you'll get an email saying that, congratulations, you became a delegate, and then just some next steps. And those next steps are, in June, there are 2 voting periods for 2 different conventions. One voting period is for the ward convention for city council. And I think that's June 2nd to June 8th off the top of my head, but you can correct me if that's wrong with a graphic. And then
if it's wrong, it's staying in, Conrad. This is going to be very light editing of this episode.
I understand
so beware.
that. I don't want the wrong information to go out. And then essentially the next one is June 9th to June 16th or something like that. Literally the next week is city convention. So just in case people aren't aware, the ward convention is for city council. So Lisa Bender and company. And
Lisa Bender's not running, Conrad. That's bad information.
That's why I used her name, because I know she's not running, so it doesn't seem like an endorsement of anything.
You could have just said Donald Duck or something. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, well, Donald Duck's not running for city council either.
You're implying that Lisa Bender's running. She's not running. That could confuse people.
Okay, well, she's not, yeah. And then the city convention is for mayor, park board, including at-large and districts, and then Board of Estimate and Taxation, as you've done candidates on the podcast here. So all those ones are in the city convention, and so essentially there's 6 versions of the ballot for each district of the park board.
And so, from now until June, campaigns are going to be chasing after delegates, right? Trying to persuade.
Yeah, campaigns have your phone number. They have your email address once we share that through the VAN agreement, or they have it already if they already have VAN and you have a email address from, Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or something like that.
It's a good thing we didn't tell people that you're about to be the subject of a massive month-long phone-based onslaught trying to get you to come over and support a candidate. Right?
Yeah, I know. I for many years now have had where the setting on my phone call settings is that essentially anybody who's not a contact of mine goes straight to voicemail. And so that's cut down on the, your auto warranty is expired and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's kind of funny because I feel like I have such a like people hear my name in the campaign so much that they know don't text Conrad. Yeah. And then there's the people that do email me at my personal email because they want to catch me there instead of catch me at our workplace account. And I don't know. It's funny. It's funny. I can't really say anymore.
Okay. I get very few candidate texts. I don't know why.
Well, because you're John Edwards of Wedge Live. You don't want to piss off the editor.
I'm generically named John Edwards. Nobody knows. People think of Wedge Live. They don't think of John Edwards. But campaigns, text me. I want some texts. I want to see texts. I want to know what your campaign message is.
Did you put your mobile phone number in with your registration?
It's possibly that I don't have the correct phone number associated or something. But neither one of my phone numbers do I get.
I could look you up in the van right now if you want to know what the DFL knows about you.
That'll be exciting for a podcast, Conrad. Look me up in the van right now.
All right.
Let's listen to that.
Let's do this.
Point your microphone at the keyboard so we can hear it. But don't say the number out loud, Conrad, because I might not edit it out.
Oh, no. I would never do that.
Yeah.
I just have to authenticate myself because, the GRU could be listening in on this podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's put in my authentication code.
This is going to be good. People are going to love this. You really have to be on YouTube to appreciate this part of the show.
Well, we're not sharing the screen because the DNC would hate me for that.
Yeah, but just to see you typing everything in. Conrad also wanted to talk about his fight against the Federal Reserve parking ramp, but
what was your zip code? I think it's like 55403, right?
No, that's not my zip code. I don't know. Should I give my zip code out on a podcast?
You can send it to me in the chat. Send it to me in the chat.
It's 05.
All right. There's only one of you.
Okay. One in Minneapolis or one in Ward 10?
One in that zip code. That's a John Edwards in that zip code.
Okay.
So the funnest thing that I like to look up is see if there's any survey responses.
Oh.
And it looks like you requested your vote by mail application thing in 2020.
Yeah, I voted by mail.
But that's the only one. When I looked up my grandmother Dolores with a different account that is statewide, it had stuff from the 90s. It had that she wanted to support whoever like the senator was in 1990 that I don't remember it was a Republican or a Democrat. So now I'm feeling bad about myself. But it was like, wow, the Democratic Party does not forget. Let's see if there's any contact history. No contact history.
Yeah, I don't answer my phone. I don't answer the door. You're not going to contact me.
Your voting history, you've been active since 2013. Did you move to Minneapolis in 2013?
The year before. So they have so much info on me. People are going to be very uncomfortable with this part.
You've been voting absentee basically since 2018. And you were voting at your polling place before that.
I don't know. I worked as an election judge. Maybe that's why I would have voted absentee. I can't quite remember.
You voted at your polling place in the presidential primary, though.
Yeah.
In 2020.
I think the only reason I would have voted absentee in an earlier year would have been working as an election judge all day on election day. Although I think I did in-person absentee. So
it says that you're a millennial. I'm not going to say your age, but you're a millennial.
Okay. I didn't realize that they gave.
But because your registration was from 2013, ever since some time in the recent past, the state of Minnesota has not been sharing full birth dates as part of voter registration, just the birth year. Mm-hmm. So like my grandmother, who was added to the computer in the 70s, she's been voting for far long before that. But her date of registration is 1978. So it has her full birth date because, back then, people gave out their social security numbers and birth dates and all that kind of stuff, no willy-nilly.
And so what Conrad is doing here, campaigns are doing about delegates all the time. They know everything about you.
Let's see if you have any activist codes.
Activist codes? What's an activist code?
An activist code is basically some kind of tag to say that these are different things that are yes or no. And so for in your case, you were a Senate district delegate back in 2020. You were a Senate district delegate in 2018. You're a caucus attendee in 2020. You're a caucus attendee in 2018, 2017, and 2016. So you maybe, it doesn't say who you caucus for, but it also says voter privacy, do not door knock. So that's why nobody's been door knocking you since 2017.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that was a... So maybe how do I get on the do not door knock list?
I don't know. I mean, you must be a very important person to have the do not door knock. It was that tag was added July 20th of 2017. So you must have said something and got on that VIP list.
I don't think I would have answered the door. Maybe they talked to somebody else. I don't know. Maybe they had a run-in with somebody in my building. I'm like, we're not coming back here. I don't remember requesting to be on a do not door knock list, though. I appreciate it. I'm glad for it.
Well, now you know.
I'm not answering the buzz at the door. I won't. Apartment buildings are hard to door knock.
Yeah, and according to state law, you do have to have the candidate with you to be able to legally gain access, at least, how do you say, not voluntarily,
Yeah.
So if you're just a campaign volunteer, you have no legal right to door knock a building.
Yeah, and good luck coordinating with a building manager to actually get in. That's hard too.
Well, most building managers will say no because they know their tenants or their residents don't like to be door knocked.
I mean, but they're legally obligated.
No, only if they have a candidate with them. That's the Phyllis law.
Even if the candidate's there, it's hard to coordinate with these building managers.
Oh, that's true because, you print out the law and they don't believe you.
So have we come to the end, Conrad?
Well, I think the very last thing that I would like to plug is that, so we are recording on May 1st. And so the next 7 days until May 7th, it's really important to confirm your address if you registered for the caucus. Minneapolis DFL is sending out about 4,500 postcards that are resending out postcards to people who haven't confirmed by Thursday if they registered before Tuesday. Because if they registered on Wednesday, then we're sending a card anyway. And so if you registered on Friday, you're part of 2,000 people that will be getting postcards very soon. So if you see the postcard that says official caucus mail and it has instructions on the back in 4 different languages, don't throw that away. That is very important. because it is the way that we make sure that you live where you say you live, and that you also wanted to caucus, that it wasn't that somebody used your voter registration. As we looked up John here, it's easy to find lots of data about people, and then you could use that data to create caucus registrations for people with spoof emails. And so that's why we have the confirmation process to very effectively block that kind of activity. So the deadline to confirm your address is May 7th at midnight, because we have to get right to these delegate elections, which are on May 12th through the 18th. So you have a voting period there. But yes, make sure to confirm your address by May 7th. And the website to do so is on the postcard. But just for here, it's minneapolisdfl.org/confirm.
Yeah, please return those postcards. You want to become a delegate. You want to have this power.
Yeah, even if you don't want to become a delegate, it's still, you need to confirm your address.
Yeah. Campaigns are going to be scrambling to make sure people put in that number and confirm.
Yep, and so we are sharing data on a daily basis with them. And so, yeah, please use the website, because it makes it a lot easier when people text or call in. That is a manual process, because we don't have, $1 million for our Fortune 500 company kind of solution.
Can I tell you my favorite story of the DFL endorsement process? So
I'd
far?
love to hear it.
So I occasionally get inside tips from campaigns because, I run in those circles, Conrad. So my favorite thing to hear is like from, people doing phone calls to potential delegates and caucus goers. We can't find any David Wheeler supporters. That's my favorite thing to hear.
I can't really comment on that. But,
Conrad, tell me, do David Wheeler supporters exist? Can you tell me? Do you have data on that?
I haven't looked at that.
Okay.
I purposely don't look at it so that
Conrad doesn't know. He's not going to say. He's totally straight down the middle. But I want everyone else to know that I really enjoy hearing there are no David Wheeler supporters in Ward 10. And another thing, Conrad, you've been doing the live streams for the forums that have been happening, the candidate forums.
Yeah.
Good work on that. Looks good.
Yeah, we just use a Zoom meeting that goes to a streaming service to go to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter all at the same time. And so we're just using Zoom like everybody else. And it works pretty well.
Yeah, because I remember going to a bunch of candidate forums in 2017. Like you had to go to it, be there in person physically.
Yeah, we are breaking down barriers at Minneapolis DFL.
So it'd be nice if
you can watch it on replay for the first time. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to. I was thinking about watching the Ward 9 forum, but I'm scared.
It went pretty smoothly.
I mean, not the technical aspects, just, some of the candidates. Or maybe just one of the candidates. I can't tell. I kind of tune out Ward 9.
Well, I'm sorry that we couldn't give you more awards to enjoy. Both DFL volunteers and the campaigns really didn't want to do them. But Ward 9 wanted to do them.
Ward 7. We need Ward 7. Ward 7. Where's my Ward 7 forum?
You'll have to talk to the campaigns and get them to do a Wedge Live forum.
I have to email Lisa Goodman and get her to stop hiding. Okay. Have we finished up, Conrad?
Well, you did plug the idea of the ballad of the Federal Reserve parking ramp.
Yeah, I know you want to tell this story. I guess I should let you tell the story. It's just, I got to get this out tomorrow. Otherwise, all these numbers are stale.
Okay, well, I guess...
Go ahead and tell your parking ramp story.
I guess it's just it's the story that I love because it's at such the local level so back in 2019, the Federal Reserve, which is on the corner of Hennepin and First Street North in downtown, wanted to build an 800 stall parking ramp on a parking lot that they had bought next to their property. And I was like, no, that's not happening.
Because you live nearby, right?
Yeah, I lived at the corner. I lived kitty corner across the street in a big concrete apartment block. I mean, I don't want 800 cars coming in, coming out every single day, on these little streets. That's just ridiculous. And also, it's terrible for the environment.
I mean, in their defense, it was probably going to be a mostly empty parking garage most of the time. So
yeah, because they couldn't even fill their current parking ramp that is below their building. So there's a small parking ramp that's below their building, and they have monthly permits for it, and they didn't even fill that up.
I think for some people, it's like having a big house. Like, I don't really need this space, but it feels good that I have the capacity for 800 cars right in my backyard.
Yeah, because who knows, maybe 799 of my best friends are going to show up for
We're hosting the 4th of July this year, Conrad. We're hosting the 4th of July. We need that space.
Yeah, so I got together with some neighbors who were on the north side of the property, and because they heard about me and I heard about them, and so we worked together. And you can flash up the planning commission meeting that we were all at, and the person speaking there is one of the neighbors from the north side of the ramp area.
Just to interrupt you for a moment, I won't be flashing any video because we're not doing a lot of editing for this episode.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's such a, I don't know.
As you're telling your story, keep that in mind.
All right. Well, at least you have to put up the Housing for People, Not Cars banner that I had designed that so eloquently says, because it's funny. So there's one part of the story. So we're at the Planning Commission. It was led by, what's the last guy?
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. And so one of our neighbors gets up and goes up there, and he's just like a regular Joe, and he speaks very plainly, but then he says, we need more housing for people, not cars. Mm-hmm. And as somebody who, works in politics, and has kind of made that my life's work in a sense, it was so heartwarming to hear that little slogan that I had come up with to try to synthesize this idea. And he was using it in his public testimony on the city TV camera, all that. And that's how he, was making his voice heard and using that political slogan to use that and move it forward. So that made me really happy. I think I presented in front of the city planning commission that day. It was around July 2019. So there might be video of me doing that, but yeah, I just and we killed it. We killed that parking ramp, and that was so fun. And we had a little party in there in the neighborhood. We had a party. And that
was a big triumph.
Yeah, it was great. It's still a parking lot though, so it's not housing yet. But hopefully, instead of building 800 parking stalls, why couldn't they build nice apartments for the Federal Reserve workers, and then they can, live where they work, or, in a nice neighborhood. It's not a bad neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. People want to live there.
Yeah. I imagine some of the pushback is about security, because they seem very security focused. It's a federal building, obviously.
Well, they've built a giant fence around their property now.
Yeah. They're probably worried someone will, rent one of the apartments and then shoot off guns out their window at the Federal Reserve or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there was kind of a park area near the Federal Reserve, and people would take their dogs there and would throw a ball, fetch, that kind of thing. And the Federal Reserve has built a perimeter fence that is 12 feet tall and bends over and all that kind of stuff. And they have built this fence around the entire green space. I don't know why you have to build a fence around the green space. what am I going to do? Get close enough that I can throw a water bottle at you or something?
Yeah, one of their arguments in favor of redeveloping the parking lot as a giant 800-car parking garage was they were going to create this, public space where you could have events. And it's inconceivable to me after what happened in 2020 that they would not have just fortified the hell out of it to make sure nobody could ever get in there.
Well, and the other thing is that where they got shot at from was the post office federal parking ramp.
Right.
They got shot at from a parking ramp. So then the idea of increasing security is to put another parking ramp next to you.
You know what a parking ramp is? It's just a gun turret.
It's a place where Deep Throat meets his contact.
Yeah, nothing good happens at a parking garage.
Anyway, hopefully someday it'll be housing.
It won't be, Conrad.
Maybe someday we'll have self-driving taxis and we won't have to build parking ramps anymore.
I don't think the Federal Reserve has any interest in redeveloping that as housing. Best we can hope for is just a parking lot forever.
Well, we can dream.
Okay. Conrad Zbikowski is with the Minneapolis DFL, data guru, live streaming wizard. He's making sure all the numbers match. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for hosting, and I'm glad to go over the numbers with you today. And hopefully soon we'll have those sub-caucus preferences, who people support.
When will we have that?
There's kind of a debate over that right now. Some people want to get it right now so that they can only talk to who supports them and make sure that they confirm. And then there's people like me who want to have all of credentials done before we release that data, because I don't want campaigns either consciously or unconsciously attacking credentials of people who don't support them. And now that they know that they don't support them, then it's hard to remove that bias.
That's right. So we don't know when.
We don't know when as of May 1st at 8 o'clock.
Okay. Well, we're just going to continue ending the show. Thank you, Conrad.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.